Welcome into our latest edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcasts with my guy, Gordon Wittenmeyer. I'm David Kaplan. All right, Gordon, we'll get to listener questions in a little bit because I put a tweet out and said we're getting ready to tape the latest edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast. What questions do you have? Fire away, and I got some really good ones. But as we tape, it is the 13th of September, Friday. Still alive. The Cubs, faint as it might be, are still alive. They take 2 of 3 in Los Angeles, and now they get 3 at Colorado. They come home for 3 with Oakland, 4 with Washington.
Yeah.
They're still alive. Not telling you they're going to get there, but they're at least playing somewhat meaningful baseball. What's your thoughts?
Their only series that's tough on paper the rest of the way is at Philadelphia, and that's just a quick out to Philly and back series. And then even a little stumble there, and you got a chance to make up a little bit for it against Cincinnati in the last series, although the Reds have been playing kind of tough lately. They've certainly been pitching well. I like the schedule that they've got. It gives them a chance at the Mets. I just saw the Mets over the weekend. I think they're going to win that last playoff spot. They're playing really well, and they've got an MVP candidate, a guy who I might vote for MVP over Shohei Ohtani, Lindor, if he wills that team to a playoff spot and plays his ass off.
You can't put someone over Shohei.
Dude.
He's going to be a 50-50 guy.
Here's the way I look at it. I've never held against any candidate the fact that he's a DH. I've never held that against him. In fact, I thought Edgar Martinez should have won it in 95, and I voted for Frank Thomas when he was a DH one year. So I've never held that, but that doesn't – if somebody plays, there's 3 positions I look at. Catcher, just because you play it, if you're putting yourself in the conversation, you get a lot of extra credit for that. Shortstop, and then if you're an elite center fielder, those have to come into play. Lindor is playing shortstop like maybe he hasn't played since he was a platinum glove earlier in his career. He's really making a difference. He was the difference in winning a series over the weekend and losing a series because of his glove. And he's hitting the hell out of the ball. So right now, I mean, it's a toss-up to me. And if you want to go down that road, I mean, Shohei's doing amazing things, but also there's the thing with the recent rules changes that incentivize the running game and the stolen bases. Stolen bases don't quite mean what they used to.
50 steals means a lot.
Listen, Elly De La Cruz leads the majors with 64 steals. He plays shortstop. He's only got, up until he stole 2 bases 2-3 days ago, he had 6 attempts in the previous month because it wears you down if you play a position. So Shohei has ability, but he's also not playing in the field. So you got the advantage of the new rules, and you only do one thing. You bat 4 or 5 times a game, and if you get on base, you run. You don't have to run in the field. You don't have to exert yourself in the field. And again, I'm not taking anything away from him, not holding it against him. I'm just giving the other guy some credit that Shohei has no ability to make up ground.
Hold on a second. I'm looking at the numbers. I've got them right here. And Shohei Ohtani will have, as of today, he has played in 143 games, so he's basically playing almost every day. He's a 7.4 WAR. He's got a 9. What's that?
Go look at Fangraphs WAR and Baseball Reference WAR because they flip them.
I'm doing ESPN.
Okay, I don't know which one they use. I think they use Baseball Reference.
For Shohei Ohtani, he is batting .292, a .375 OBP, a .617 slug, 48 steals.
Frigging phenomenal.
47 homers. He's hitting .292. You talk about your guy Lindor. Lindor is hitting again. The other guy's hitting .292. This guy's hitting .268. A 6.4 WAR, a full point less. He's got 27 steals. He's got 31 home runs. It's not even close.
It's very close. And now to be perfectly clear, I haven't made a decision. I'm not sitting here telling you right now I'm voting for Lindor, but that's a real decision that I'm going to have to make when the season finishes.
I'll make it for you right now. Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, well, you don't have a vote.
Yeah, that's another thing.
It's probably a good thing.
You and the Pen and Mike Club don't let us electronic guys that watch more baseball.
You can do whatever you damn want. The MVP is a BBWA award. ESPN has its awards. You can have the CAP awards. Go make the CAP awards.
I should have a Hall of Fame vote. Instead, you give them to guys like Teddy Greenstein.
We don't give them to anybody. The Hall of Fame does. And the Hall of Fame has said they're very satisfied with the job the BBWA does. If the Hall of Fame wants to take it away, that's fine, because that vote has become a headache to try to navigate all the rough waters of the candidates these days.
All right, so let's talk about the Chicago Cubs, because one of the questions that we got from multiple people is how you handle. In fact, I'm going to bring up these questions right here. We'll give it to Tyler Campbell, at Tyler Campbell. Looking at the offseason, I see essentially every spot filled in the starting lineup. That doesn't include even a Bellinger opt-in return. How do the Cubs find room for the prospects or new additions? It would be the same team for 3 straight years. Nico is the only trade option to me. How do you fix this thing? Owen Casey's killing it in AAA.
Dude,
Cam Smith is already in AA. He's got drafted in freaking June.
Well, before you start falling in love with prospects left and right, I mean, this team's first priority has got to be to win regardless next year. And you don't do that by banking on unproven young kids. That said, if they force their hand, they're going to get an opportunity to play. You might have to make a tough decision and non-tender somebody next year if one of these guys comes up and is the next, whoever, Starlin Castro. Remember when he came up?
Yep.
So that could happen, and that's how that takes care of itself. I wouldn't spend any sleepless nights on whether guys are getting blocked from getting there. What I would tell you is I think this that they have played just well enough to tantalize again late. Now, maybe they get to the playoffs, and more power to them if they do. And if they win a series or two and make a run, maybe even like the Diamondbacks did last year, they do have pitching if they can get in the postseason. But I already mentioned the Mets. They do have a tougher schedule down the stretch, but the Mets are playing well, and the Mets have the tiebreaker. So do the Braves. So the Cubs have to win it outright. It's a steep climb. If they don't get there, this is the worst thing that could have happened to them, finishing like this, because it's going to tantalize enough. Everybody's going to say, well, they're right on the brink. We saw what they did. They finished strong. They're ready to go next year. We got everybody back. That's the worst friggin' thing that can happen, because it's the same team they rolled out there last year, and maybe they win a game or two more than last year. So I don't think that's what you ideally want. And it's certainly not the thing that quote fixes this. The positive signs, the real signs to look at, it looks like they've found some bullpen answers, and maybe it gives them a starting point in that regard going next year. That's a good thing. Pete Crow Armstrong seems to be finding his big league legs under him. That's a good thing. And so, and Bush is going to have another year of experience. So those are all good things. I don't know what the hell you do with Bellinger. If he comes back, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. It certainly hamstrings your budget if he comes back. And so you already hear Scott Boras. I don't know did you see Pat Mooney's story?
I didn't.
He was out in LA and he talked to Boras, and Boras was already trying to explain away some of Bellinger's numbers. Now, what he said was, this isn't anybody's fault, but if I don't want to get it wrong, but I believe what he said was Wrigley Field's not a great place to hit. It's a worse place to hit now maybe than it used to be. And a lot of hitters feel that way. And they might even have trouble attracting free agents coming in.
Oh, that's a bunch of nonsense.
Well, I don't know if that's true or not. Besides, the idea of them going after free agent hitters. I mean, who the hell is it going to be? I mean, if Cody Bellinger opts out, then maybe you got a little money, and maybe you try to go find.
I was told by somebody who would know that they literally are not even going to make a phone call on Juan Soto. Not even going to make a call.
It would, if they said they were going to, I would say I think they're lying. So I don't see that as plausible anyway. So I don't know that there's a whole lot you need to do there anyway. But Boris already seems to be making his Bellinger case, like moving forward, and maybe that's a sign that he might opt out. Maybe he's trying to.
I think again, I haven't asked Jed. I haven't spoken to Jed in a while. I would bet you that they are lighting candles at the grotto at Notre Dame to see if they can get Bellinger to opt out. They want him gone. Not that they don't like the guy. They want that money off the books. You realize this year they are paying $7 million to Trey Mancini to not play for him, $3.5 million to Tucker Barnhart to not play for him, $5 million to Jason Hayward to not play for him. I don't know the number, but they're still paying John Lester from a backloaded end of his deal to not play for him.
They're also still paying Rossi.
Paying Brad Boxberger. There's a handful of guys. They're spending over $20 million to guys who aren't on their roster.
That's their own goddamn fault. And they have nothing to show for it.
You're right.
Nothing. So this is stuff we've talked about for a long time. There is a lot to fix here. And again, the fact that they're playing just well enough to tantalize and maybe have another close call with a playoff berth this year is going to be one of those things that when they start looking at the offseason and they start looking at decisions in the hierarchy, it makes Jed's case to stick around for another year. It makes him not look quite so impulsive and maybe even wrong in the way he handled the manager move. So I don't think that's the best case scenario for this club. I think a little more of a, well, I mean, they did have a near miss on a crash and burn a couple of times earlier in the year, but had they maybe been, the Reds or Pirates, where, maybe the Pirates is too extreme because they lost 10 straight or whatever, but the Reds are like 5 games under 500. If they were something like that, that's a clear failure, but maybe it's not a complete, utter disaster for trying to put some pieces back together, but you do go in and you get some more decision makers. And now they're not going to. And you're going to just be right back where you were going into next year, in my mind.
Porter Hodge is throwing the heck out of the ball. Mm-hmm. And people over there, they believe that they've solved their closer role. I'm not convinced they have. Maybe they have. I hope they have.
To me, solving the closer role is more about making sure you have 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 options. And if he's a legit option, then that's a legit step.
And Ben Brown could be a legit option.
Yeah. Yeah. And these guys don't have to be the closer in name for the full season, live or die with him. They can rotate. They can share the job. You can do any number of things that are effective enough.
All right, let me ask you a question. Where can they upgrade their everyday lineup? You always need more pitching. If Cade Horton's healthy, they'll have him probably in their rotation. We've talked about the closer role. They'll go out and add a veteran bullpen arm of some type or two. But where can they upgrade the everyday lineup? Because I will be surprised if Nico Hoerner's on this team next year.
Well, you keep going back to that. I like Nico more than you do in that regard.
I like Nico. He's an average
as far as a player that he is. As far as a player that he is, when you it's really easy to look at his OPS and say, well, shit, he's got an OPS under 700. Boy, that's lousy. You have to take into account he's not going to slug. So if he has on base and he has contact skills, which he does, then he's valuable offensively. And we know how valuable his glove is. I value him as a total player a lot more than you do. So you ask me, so I don't move him. Maybe they move him. I don't move him. The 2 places that I can see, and one of them, again, would be would force a hard decision. One's catching, right? You got to maybe improve the catching.
Maybe the backup role. Amaya's been outstanding the last 2 months.
So okay, so you improve by increments there, by who you add. Then the other place would be maybe third base, but you think you've already kind of solved that, or at least got one of the
just traded for Paredes.
That's what I'm saying. So if you think that you're good there with him and whoever else is coming, then the answer is nowhere. And I do think this, you mentioned Hoerner. You could wind up, be careful what you wish for on that, because he's not an easy player to find. And
agreed.
If you get rid of him, you could create deficits that even if you fix one area that you think you're missing in his game, you could create deficits that you don't make up. And now maybe you're even worse off.
That's true. Now you will have a full season of PCA, who has been magnificent. And
we think we have no reason to believe that he won't build off that, but he's still young and we don't know. But having a guy like that in an otherwise veteran situation is a good thing. Having a couple of guys like that nice veteran young guy mix is good. You don't want too many young guys coming in. You didn't want to go into this season having to rely on him. So, I suspect they're just going to roll this thing roughly the same back out there again, maybe add a little pitching, and maybe they get on a run early and it clicks and they wind up winning the division. I mean, Milwaukee is a weird team. Like I could see they could take a step back. They had a couple injuries this year and they traded away Corbin Burns and they still did real well. But the wrong injury at the wrong time, they don't have, the resources, the means to really offset something, the wrong thing.
Would you trade Vladimir Guerrero for Michael Busch? If you were the Cubs, would you make that deal?
All else being equal, like baseball talent to baseball talent, I would do that.
Okay, so you get a guy who's got 1 year left and wants to be paid $300 million versus a guy who's
said all else being equal, baseball talent to baseball talent. Now you didn't
factor it all in. If the Blue Jays called you and said, "Give me that prospect and Michael Busch, and you can have Vladdy Guerrero," would you do it?
If I thought that I could project paying him going forward, I probably would do that. I think the one thing, not the one thing, but something that's been glaring as something the Cubs have been missing is the
left-handed slug.
Yes, but kind of hand in glove with that idea is a superstar. You look at the teams that have the best chances to win this October. Yeah, people talk about pitching. Pitching wins playoff games and a whole thing. Most of the good teams out there have enough pitching to compete in October, the teams that are going to make it. But the teams that look scariest are teams like the Phillies with those monsters in the middle, team like the Dodgers with those monsters at the top, team like the Yankees with those two monsters right in the middle. Those teams are scary. Houston has Hall of Famers in their lineup. That's what you need. A guy that you could reasonably say, hey, if this guy keeps going like he's going, he is a Hall of Fame player. And the Cubs thought they had that with that core that won the World Series. For a brief time, they thought they had that. And those guys played like that when they won. That's what you need. They don't have that right now. I mean, tell me who you think is that guy right now.
They don't have one.
They don't have it. And so if they roll this back out again, they might be good next year. They might even get to the playoffs next year. But it's not going to be that put your foot on the rest of the league's throat and you're all in thinking championship or bust. I mean, it's going to be incremental again. That's where they boxed themselves in on this. If these guys wind up paying the luxury tax like it looks like they might, that is an utter failure.
Agreed. Let me ask you a question. If Owen Casey, who looks phenomenal in the minors, if he comes up and makes the everyday lineup and he's a really good player. I'm not calling him a Hall of Famer or a superstar, just a really good player.
Yeah.
Does that validate their decision to trade Yu Darvish?
No, because that's 2020 hindsight.
I knew you'd say that.
You can't do that. Like I would be borderline hypocritical to do that, because we said at the time, who knows what you get out of these young guys? Like 3 of them were 19 and the other one was 20. And the idea was everybody said, well, they're really well regarded. Yeah. Who the hell knows what you're going to get out of them? Now it looks like maybe one guy will be the guy that pays off, which is fine, which would have been, you'd have said if one of those guys really pays off and he's an everyday player and makes an all-star team once in a while, then they did pretty well in evaluating those guys and then subsequently developing them. But no, because that was a playoff team that all it did in 2021 after they traded him was prove that they had the ability to get there again and win that division. And by letting him go, that was part of the equation of not giving yourself a chance and actually setting the stage for what you already knew you were going to do.
But he has not been very good for San Diego.
He was for a while, and he has been when he pitches. Now, again, 2020 hindsight and the whole thing. Healthy, that guy has been a playoff caliber pitcher. He's been one of the best pitchers in the game. He's had injury issues, no question. But he had found, you remember one of the things with him was he was a comfort zone guy. And it took him a while to get used to Chicago. Then he got used to Chicago, got used to Caratini. Caratini went with him in that trade. And he found a stretch of baseball like he hadn't had before. And they sold high on that rather than go in on that and try to win because of pandemic revenue losses. And remember, Schwarber was even more egregious because they non-tendered him just for the money. They got nothing. They non-tendered him. Same winner. And that's what I'm talking about. You cannot, in retrospect, justify that.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's because I'm right.
You're only saying it because of the money aspect to the trade. It's the only reason you're saying it.
Is that you telling me that?
Yeah.
Oh,
you're the
no. Well, I'm telling you that they ran scared from the money, but the baseball decisions were egregious. You can't do that. It's
the
not.
Schwarber one certainly looks bad. The Darvish one, I don't think I'm as down on it as you are.
You blew up a playoff team. Now, and it's all part of a bigger picture too. Remember, this is when Theo left.
You blew up a playoff team. Who's good off of that playoff team?
This again, you go back in that moment, Cap, and they would have, in all likelihood, won that year in 2021. I don't know if they'd have won a World Series, but they'd have won a division. That team was in first place in June, in June 24th, I believe. Go look it up. They were in first place, and they had no hit the Dodgers. And so this is a team that maybe had you kept Schwarber, maybe had you kept Darvish, that team has a 6-7 game lead at that point, and they go on and win the division. Instead, you knew from day one that offseason that if you couldn't extend one or two of those guys, they were all gone. And that's exactly what happened. But you greased the skids for that with the Darvish and the Schwarber thing. As soon as they did that, from a baseball standpoint, they don't plan to compete at that point. And then if they don't compete, the next domino is, well, we've justified trading off all those core guys, and everybody will understand it, even though they love those guys and what a great time in history for the Cubs that was. And that's why Theo got out. He wasn't the guy that was going to have to do that.
A couple quick things, and I'll spring you. Breaking news tonight from Jeff Passan. Did you see his story?
I didn't. I've been traveling.
The Minnesota Twins released catcher Derek Bender, their 6th round pick in the 2024 draft, after it was proved that he tipped minor league opponents the pitch that was coming during at-bats of a game with playoff implications.
Wow.
How about that?
Are we going to find out next that he was gambling?
Oh, God.
Because I think you can gamble on minor league games.
Oh, I didn't know you could. That is just a brutal, brutal thing to break. That would be one where he may never play again.
I would think not. Yeah, these are. And by the way, this is, I've been critical of MLB for its role in embracing gambling and then at the same time, being all rigid and inflexible when it comes to its penalties, which they can justify that. They can rationalize that. It makes sense. But this is where we are today, man, with gambling. It's so pervasive everywhere with sports betting. And I'm not saying, I don't know about this guy, but this notion of that he, what was his motivation for letting guys know what was coming? Were these his buddies? I don't know. But this sort of casual approach to professional sports in a time, as it relates to sort of this new age of pervasive gambling, man, we saw what happened with all those guys that got suspended this year. Guy got a lifetime ban for the first time since Pete Rose this year. Guy that played for the Padres and the Pirates.
All right, last one. Illinois Hit Dogs says, guys, the Cubs were not World Series contenders going into the 2024 season. In my opinion, this is him, not me. They did a nice job sticking with the rookies and developing some of their pitching and bullpen. They'll be better because PCA, Bush, Amaya, and other young players emerge. We all want to win now, but it's a process, and it starts from developing young talent. Thoughts? I'll tell you my thoughts.
Three words.
Michael Bush is a nice player. I don't know if he's a star. Amaya's had a solid 2.5 months. We'll see if it continues. In terms of Porter Hodge and some of these guys, yeah, they've been fine. You still don't have enough. You've blown 24 saves, 16 of which ended up in losses. If you've also
blown some elbows in recent years with some guys that were performing very well.
No question. 24 blown saves, 16 of which ended up in losses. If you had 8 of those, that's a 50% save rate in those, by the way. That would suck. You'd be a playoff team. So for everyone screaming about the offense, and I agree it wasn't good enough, your bullpen without a closer was just an awful
that was the number one reason that this team isn't in
totally agree. Totally agree. But if you want to give the positives about Jed, he did a great job getting Imanaga. He did a great job on the trade for Michael Bush. He's remade the bullpen on the fly, and he's done a reasonably good job there. But
after effing up for 2 years.
Yeah, no question. The PCA trade is going to go down as one of the really good deals. 2 months of Javi Baez for that guy? Are you kidding?
Matter of fact, the Mets got a good deal on that too at the time because Javi performed. That was the last time he performed.
Right. And they did not win with him. And then he left to get PCA. You got 6 years of control on that dude. Oh my goodness. Potentially 7.
Well, what's this guy's name? Hit Dog?
Illinois Hit Dogs.
Well, Hit Dog, man. Look, I got 3 words for you if you're going to point at this development this year and hang a hat on it into next year. 2024 Cincinnati Reds. They had one of the best young groups of players, a whole bunch of rookies that broke in last year and were really, really exciting. One guy built on that this year, and he's fading down the stretch in some ways. One guy got hurt, and he hasn't been there all year. One guy got popped, and then when he came for steroids, and when he came back, he was a deficit on the field in every way imaginable. Another guy just didn't develop. This stuff happens. Guys break in, show something, and then the tough part comes. Staying there is the tough part, and staying there and performing well. There's I'm not saying that it won't happen. I'm saying that, keep your fingers crossed and, wait and see. But they've got a lot to prove.
A lot to prove. Gordon, have a great rest of your night, man. We'll take more listener questions next week. All I know is here we are on the 13th of September, still alive.
You ride that wave as long as you can, Cap.
You can watch your college football. I'll be watching Cubs and Rockies baseball.
Yeah, I'll be watching a lot of football.
Have a great night.
All right, you too, man.
All right, that's my guy, Gordon Wittenmeyer, my partner. For Gordon, I'm Cap. It's another edition of the Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel, and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. Keep it rolling, Cubbies. Take that.